When did you realize your partner didn't really care about you?
When the "your match is about to expire" notification popped up while he was showing me TikToks.
I was physically assaulted at work. When I told him about it, I expected him to be horrified, protective, or at least not happy about it. Instead, he looked bored. He implied that I get a bit mouthy, so maybe I off the wrong guy. I got the ick so fast there was no turning back.
I had to drive a couple hours to say goodbye to my dying grandpa in the hospital. On my way back home, I stopped at Chipotle for dinner. My then boyfriend's first reaction when he saw me, rather than comforting me because I just visited my grandpa for the last time, was to get angry that I didn't get him a burrito.
When I explained that I'd been feeling depressed because playing music is my outlet and I'd been really missing it, I bought a keyboard for the extra bedroom, which he didn't notice for 2+ months. When he did notice, he told me to get rid of it because he doesn't want extra junk in his house. I only played with headphones and usually when he wasn't home, but he told me if the keyboard didn't go, I had to. So I took the keyboard and left.
He cried to me about emotional issues sometimes and I always held him and talked him through it. Eventually I needed the same support, but instead he got mad and started yelling, blaming me, and told me, "One of us has to be the strong one. I can't have a partner who falls apart like this. I need someone."
When he accused me of being manipulative because I was crying. Why was I crying? Because I had literally just received the news that my closest friend had committed suicide.
We were out in town and he wanted to grab some street food. I didn't have money on me, so I got nothing. He didn't offer. I sat next to him watching him was small, and yes, I could have said something. But it was just one of many occasions that made me understand that he doesn't care about me the way I care about him. After 2 years.
Me. When I fell down the stairs at my boyfriend's house and I was screaming in pain because I broke my ankle and he got mad at me because he had to drive me to the hospital. He later told me he got angry because he wanted to play Elden Ring.
He's an ex-husband. When I begged him not to tell me what happened at the because I knew I'd use the knowledge to torture myself, the first thing he did when he got home was brag about the lap dances he got and how hot those women were compared to me in an attempt to upset me because he wanted attention. It didn't work and I ignored him, so he punched my chair. We had problems before that, but that night killed any respect I had left. Things deteriorated quickly. A bright note: my boyfriend now has never even raised his voice at me. At every opportunity he tries to make the choice that would make me feel the most safe, loved, and respected. If your current partner is showing that they don't care about you, leave. There's a better life out there for you. I've never felt more lucky than I do now.
I confronted him and found out I was just a side piece. I cried for days, mostly because I couldn't believe I was that.
When I realized that I was always needing to adjust to his schedules, and the relationship immediately fell apart when I stopped putting in the effort.
When my ex proposed to me and then 3 weeks later started cheating on me with an employee that was underage.
When I was heavily pregnant and we were arguing, I started feeling pain in the abdomen and collapsed, but he just stood there and laughed and said it served me right.
I'd come down with a horrible flu. He convinced me to come over to his place. "Let me take care of you. You shouldn't be suffering alone." I wanted to just stay in my own bed and ride it out, but he kept at it and I thought he was just trying to be a caring boyfriend. He just pestered me for the whole time and then guilt-tripped me when I said I didn't want to because I was feeling so rough. "You mean with me would make you feel worse, wouldn't make you feel happier?" "Right, got it. Thanks." I wish I'd dumped his right then, but I was young and deep into a sunken cost fallacy.
So many small things that I justified as differences in communication. The final realization was when I tried talking about my complicated relationship with my father and he started getting angry at me for not understanding what fathers go through and general explanation of why life sucks for men. Like, bro, are you gaslighting me about my own relationship with my dad? The bulb just went on that he doesn't care enough to understand my experiences. Broke up within the next 2 weeks.
I fell and twisted my ankle one evening after he had dropped me off for my evening class. Someone riding a bike had to actually go after him to stop him from driving off completely and leaving me there. When he came back to me, he was super annoyed and asked me what he was supposed to do about it. So I made him drive me to the urgent care. He then proceeded to make me take my heavy backpack inside with our 2 small children and left us there. He wanted to go get high on drugs. I couldn't even walk and was so embarrassed and angry. I had to call my mom to come pick us up once I was done because he wouldn't answer the phone. The entire time my ankle was sprained, he never once offered to help do anything. This is one of the many reasons he's my ex upside down face.
When he had to pick me up after I was mugged and drove me straight to a bar. I started crying when I realized we weren't going home, and he argued with me why we should go out until he ended up taking me home just to then ignore and pout.
When I realized he doesn't honor my boundaries, doesn't provide emotional support, and after I told him I wasn't happy in our relationship and was considering divorce, and he told me he wanted to fix things, he created a second, anonymous, Snapchat. He used his same phone number, so Snapchat told me one of my contacts had just joined. Woman facepalming.
When he didn't want to tell one of his, unbeknownst to me, many bits on the side that it was over because, and I quote, he didn't want to hurt her feelings. And then again when I was only hours from having heart surgery and he chose that moment to tell me he didn't love me anymore. Now I'm with a guy who actually loves me, and I regret ever giving that thing I used to date the time of day.
When I had to have an emergency procedure and instead of him driving me, I had to take the train because it was too early for him to bring me. I had no drivers. Week later he helped his family at 7 a.m. to noted.
When my fiancé told me that I was just a convenient babysitter with benefits after I discovered her cheating. She went on and on about how she was so out of my league that I should have known, it was my fault for being so. We had been together for 3 years, living together for 2, and I realized that she never cared. I was just a roof over her head and took care of her kids while she went out to hook up with guys. She kept the ring, and from what I've been told, she sold it.
When I found out he had never actually stopped contact with the woman he cheated on me with. They just moved their sexting convos over to a different app.
When he critiqued how I gave birth.
When, less than 24 hours after I had my first dog put down, he asked me why I was still crying. He also had a breakdown in his car, crying, hitting the steering wheel, punching his window, etc. When I asked him to stay with me the night I reported my ex-boyfriend, different guy, for an assault. He said he couldn't come home with me because he couldn't handle what I said in my report to the police. It was the first time I'd ever told anyone the full story of the abuse I went through, and he insisted on coming with me. He instead went home and took drugs. I had to listen to him cry on the phone because he felt like he was a bad person.
The one that was an eye-opener was while we were fetching a couple of items from the local store. I got really dizzy and fell on the floor, had vertigo balance issues at the time. She didn't even notice, and kept on walking around the store. One of the staff brought me a chair to sit down. After a while I managed to find my balance and went to find her, told her what happened. She started shouting defensively. It was over that week. Had to end it.
This happened a long time ago, but it was when I got in an accident, and when I texted him about it he didn't even bother to come see me. He just asked what happened and continued gaming with his friends.
I returned to Australia in 2021 following a horrible journey back to Scotland, where we got stuck for 3 months, after the of my older brother. When I finally got out of hotel quarantine, I witnessed my sister reuniting with her partner, who ran to her and hugged her like he was never going to let go. When my partner of 10 years picked me up from the airport, he looked irritated and like he didn't want to be there. I hugged him, but he barely returned it. I found out a few months later he had started talking to other girls online while I was stuck in Scotland dealing with the fallout of what happened to my he'd been an ex for almost a year now.
It's hard to tell. There have been so many glaring signs in our marriage. It's pretty obvious the only reason he ever cared about me is because I came with assets and a decent paycheck. I wonder if he realizes yet that he has destroyed all the feelings I ever had for him?
Ex-partner. I broke a glass accidentally and stepped on a piece screaming. He didn't even come into the kitchen, which was right next to our bedroom. Even after I yelled for him to get something to stop the bleeding.
When he wouldn't go get me food after I worked 12 hours and he had the whole day off and I hadn't eaten yet that day. The place was like a 5 minutes drive away, but he asked me to get it delivered instead. It took 2 hours for the food to get there. I cried because it was Super Bowl Sunday and we had all you can eat, drink packages, so I ran around a lot and opened the restaurant that morning too. I was so tired. I broke up with him 2 days later.